Hilchish Goges Perik Shnei Maser. The Rambam here will discuss next few prokim the din of Par Helam Davar Shel Tzibur and also the Sor of Avodah Zarah. Now we learned that there's a din that there was the 43 Averas that if a person did them, he has to bring a Chatas Kvuah. That was the din of the din of a Chatas. And whether a Yochid did it or a Rabbim did it, either way, each person that did the Avera B'Shegig has to bring the Chatas, a Chatas Kvuah. However, there's a special din that if Bezdin Paskint, and this Bezdin means Bezdin HaGodel, Bezdin HaGodel Paskint, about one of these Chayve Krisus, that they were materit, and then the Reiv HaKol, either Reiv HaKol or Reiv HaShvatim or Kol HaKol, did Al Pi Hirosam, and they would toilet the Hirah in Bezdin. So then the din is that Bezdin brings a carbon and the Kol is potter. That's the special din. Now the reason why the Kol is potter is not because since they did Al Pi Bezdin, so therefore they're like an oinus. Because Lepel, in cases where Bezdin is not potter, and the Kol also did Al Pi the Bezdin, and nevertheless the Kol is chayiv. The reason why the Kol is potter is because Lepel, the Bezdin is bringing it, so those people that were toilet in the hero of Bezdin, they're potter. That's this din. Perik Shnei Moshe. Kol Dover Shechayoven Al Shegagos Chatas Kvuah. All those Averis, which are Yechayev Al Shegagos Chatas Kvuah, which were the 43 Averis. Im Shogagu Bezdin HaGodel Behiro. Vehero Latire. Bezdin made a mistake, and they said that it's mutters, a certain aspect of these 43 Isurim, which is really Chayve Krisos, they were matter. And the Shogagu Om Behiro Osam, as a result of their hero, the Om made a mistake, and V'asu Om. And being same chaler asim, they were doing it based on this hira. Whereas later on we'll learn, let's say if someone knows, someone's a person that's a royal hira, he knows they made a mistake. And he did it not based on their hira, because he knows they made a mistake. He's based on a new mistake. His mistake was that he thinks you're supposed to listen to the Bezdin even when you know they made a mistake. So that's a different mistake. So then that's not considered a tolu beir asim, and then he's takachayev achatas, like we'll learn Behemshel. That's the taich. V'shogu am beir asim, they did it because they were relying on the hero, and there was no other factors involved. So the din is that Bezdin Chayavin Lahavi Carbon Chatas Al Shigigosim Beiro. So then the din is that the Bezdin brings a carbon, and Ma'afal Pi Shaloi also Hein Batzim Maisa, even whether the Bezdin didn't do anything. Sheimash Gichan Al Asiyas Bezdin Klal. The issue over here is not what Bezdin did, Bein also Bein Lei also. It's irrelevant. The issue is that they paskind that this is mutter, and that as a result of that, the tzibur did al pi hirasim, the tzibur did al pi hirasim, ushar ha'am turim and hakarban, and then everyone else is patim and hakarban. Va'afal pi shehein ha'esim mipnei shetoli bebezin, because they were toli bebezin. As we again, toli bebezin alone is not enough to be pater. It was toli bebezin, and bezin is chayiv, so then they're pater. What is the carbon? So it depends. If the din that they made a mistake was about Avodah Zarah, and as a result of that, the kohol went ahead and they did al pira asim and Avodah Zarah. So then Mivian parla ela, they bring a parla ela, and also the sor lechatos, and that comes mikol shevet v'shevet, which means each shevet has to pay for it. There's a separate gvia. It doesn't come from the Tzumas Halishka. It's a separate collection that you make from each shevet to pay for the par la'oila and for the sor lechatos. And we'll learn Behemshech, even though not every shevet did the Avera, but the pale, each shevet has to bring the par and the sor. That's B'negei Avodah Zarah. And the carbon zeh huwa omer beparsha shlach lecha shenemar v'hoye me'inu ya'edin esel ishgaga is mipi Shmuel Londu that shebeshigas Avodah Zarah hu medaber, that parsha is talking about shigas Avodah Zarah, and over there it says that you have to bring a par leil and a sor lechatos. Ve'im b'shar krisus shechayovim al shigigos and chatos kvuah shagu v'heru. The mistake that Bezdin made wasn't about Avodah Zarah, it was about the other chayvi krisus that they made a mistake about. So then maybe again, kol shevet to shevet, each shevet has to bring a par chatos. They have to bring a par chatos. There's no oila, and it's not a sor lechatos, but a par chatos. V'zehu omer beparshas vayikra, shenamar v'im kol adas yisrael yishgu. And over there it talks about that they bring a par lechatos. Nimtza slomet, she comes up a pale. Shim shogagu Bezdin hagodel behiro b'Avodah Zarah. So then mivian kol hakol, the kol together, which means each shevet, the kol together brings shnei masaporim eiles, with shnei masasirim chatois. Vehem nisrofis, and those seirim of the chatois on Nisrafim, that's Seirim HaNisrafim that we say in the Yizeh Mekeiman, Sharei Dama Nichnas Lefim, because the dam is brought in Lefnim, is brought onto the Parecha, so maybe we have a cloud that a dam, a Chatas Apnimi, always is Nisraf. The Heiman Nekroim Siri Avodah Zarah. The Im B'Shara Mitzvah Shagu, if the hero wasn't about Avodah Zarah, but was B'Shara Mitzvahs, so then Mivim Shnei Mosa Parim Chatois, then you bring 12 Chatois, and again, Bezdin brings the 12 Chatois, but it's paid for by each separate Shevet. The Hein Nisrafis, again, these Parim and Chatois are also Nisrafis, Nipnei Shedam and Nichnas Lefnim. And V'chol Par Mehem Nikra Par Helam Davar Shel Tzibur. So there's the Seiri Avodah Zarah, and there's the Par Helam Davar Shel Tzibur. Shnemar, how do we know that you have to bring for each Shevet, that you have to bring a separate carbon for each Shevet? Shnemar Ve'ikrivu HaKol. So we learn out Kol, Kol, V'Kol. We learn out each Kol has to bring, and V'chol Shevet V'Shevet Kari Kol, Shnemar V'Yamadi Yeshafat, B'Kal Yehuda. So Mamela we learn out that each Shevet is called a Kol, and you have to bring a carbon for each Shevet. Now how many people did Al Pi Hira? So that the Rambam continues. So the first thing, they made a Hira, they passed it. Now, who did Al Pi Hira? Ben also Kol Yisrael Sheberetz Yisrael. That if the entire Klal Yisrael that was in Eretz Yisrael did it, Al Pi Bezin Sheheru, or Ben also Reiv Yisrael, if Reiv Yisrael did it, Afal Pi Shehein Miut Minyan Ashvatim. This Reiv Yisrael is Miut Minyan Ashvatim. You can have one Shevet that has a lot of people, and that those people are the Reiv HaKol, but it's only one Shevet. And Ben also Reiv Ashvatim. You can have another scenario where Reiv Ashvatim did it, but it's not Reiv Yisrael. In other words, the Reiv Ashvatim are less than Reiv Yisrael. And it doesn't have to be really the entire Shevet, it just has to be the Reiv of each Shevet. In other words, you have, let's say, 7 Shvatim. You have 7 Shvatim, and the Reiv of each of those 7 Shvatim did the Avera. So even though the amount of people that did the Avera weren't the Reiv of Klal Yisrael, but that also considered that it was done al pi the Reiv, the Kol did it. The Kol did it al pi the Hira. Is Afal pi shehein miut shel Yisrael. So then the din is that Bezdin brings Mivian Keminyan Kol HaShvatim. You bring Keminyan Kol HaShvatim. In other words, even though Lepel only 7 Shvatim did the Avera, but nevertheless, Mivian Keminyan Kol HaShvatim, Par L'chol Shevet V'Shevet, that's B'negeya, other Averas, not Avodah Zarah, or Avodah Zarah, Par V'Sorah L'chol Shevet V'Shevet. So the Rambam Taitz is Af Elu Shlei Chotu, L'chure, the one Ketayna, you're saying, Reiv HaKol did it. Reiv HaKol did it, but it was only one Shevet, so let that Shevet bring it. Or if Reiv HaShvatim did it, only 7 Shvatim, but let only the 7 Shvatim bring it. So we say no. Sha'af Elu Shalei Chotu, even those Shvatim that didn't do the Avera, is Mevi'in Al-Yidei HaChetim, they have to bring because of the Chetim. Because of what the Chetim sinned, they have to also bring. Afilu Asa Shevet Echad Bulvat, V'hu Reiv HaKol. So the din is Arikol Atzibur, Mevi'im Shnei Asa Parim. So it means you bring 12 Parim, and 12 Parim means you bring a par from each Shevet. Each Shevet pays for a par. And Ba'avodah Zarah, Shnei Masa Parim, Shnei Masa Sir. So that's this din that normally there's a din that there's a Chatas Kvua. And over here, B'negeya, if it was Heiru Bezdin, so if it was Heiru Bezdin Ba'avodah Zarah, so then Bezdin brings for each Shevet, if it was Reiv HaKol, or Reiv Shvatim of the Kol, or Kol HaKol of Eretz Yisrael, so they bring 12, if it's a regular Aveda, so they bring 12 Parim, which each par is called the Par Helam Davar Shel Tzibur, and if it was Avodah Zarah, so they bring 12 Parim, which are Oilis, and then they also bring 12 Seirim, and each Sor is a Chatas, which Chatois and Asas Befnim, inside the Par, inside the Sor and the Srafis. Halacha Beis. Bezin Shenistapik Lehem, Im Shagugu Behira Ilei Shagu. Bezin has a suffix whether or not they were Shagugu Behira. Now we know that there's a musig, if you have a suffix whether or not you're Chai V'Chatos, you have to bring a Korban Noshim Toli. There's a suffix if you're Chai V'Chatos, you have to bring a Noshim Toli. So over here the question is the Bezin has a suffix whether they were Shagugu Behira or Ilei Shagugu. So the din is Einon Chayavim B'Oshim Toli. They're not Chai V'Noshim Toli. Shnema V'Noida HaChatos. So we learn out Achativoda V'Acharka Chischarvi B'Korban K'meshi Yizbar. The only time that they're chayiv is if they know that they were shagugu behira, shagugu behira. Now the ma'ase is that you have to understand it's not so clear what would be the hechatimtza that there would be a havamina that Bezin should bring an oshim toli. The din of an oshim toli is that if a person did an aveir, he didn't act, and he doesn't know if he did an aveir. He knows he ate a chaticha bin shtei chatichas, and one of them was chaylev, and he doesn't know if it was chaylev. So that would be, there was Ikba Yisura, there was definitely Chaylev there, or there was an Isha that was definitely, she was a Mekudeshes. Now the question is whether she's a Mugureshes, so it's again called an Ikba Yisura, and the person was Bala, so he doesn't know if she was Neshes Isha or not. So that would be the case of an Oshim Toli. Over here, the question is, what would be the case? The Bezdin paskind, and they have a suffix whether they paskin about something. So what would be the tzir where you're going to call it an ikba yisura, and memela there would be a svara that they should bring an ashim toli. In other words, let's just say that there was something that there was definitely an isur, and the question is if it became mutter or it didn't become mutter, and there's two tzdadim whether it's mutter or not, and memela, and they paskind, and now they have a suffix whether or not that psak was a real psak. In other words, they paskin that it's mutter. There was something that was us. They paskin that it became mutter. And now by them there's a suffix whether that psak was a real psak. That guf is the suffix. So it would be like a suffix on something that was this chazik yisura, or ikba yisura, and now there's a suffix. It's not clear. It's not so clear. The people ask this. They try to find a tzir where there would be a tzir where it would be ikba yisura, and in such a similar case by a hedyet there would be ashim toli, and the chiddush is that the Bezdin doesn't have an Ashim Toli. The Bezdin doesn't remember if they said such a psak din. So that's not a chiv in Ashim Toli. You don't make an Ashim Toli because you're not really sure what happened. The pashtus. Well, you know what happened, but what happened was that it's a suffix whether it became usur or not. Whether you pegeh be isur, and it has to be that there was a ikba yisura. So over here also, l'chura, they were matter something that was an ikba yisura, and it's a suffix whether or not that heter was a real heter. But now it's again, what's the suffix? Over there, the pshat is the suffix b'metzias. Over here, it's not so clear what the suffix is. I'll call upon him. But the din is that Bezdin doesn't bring a Oshim Tol. B'medvar mamurim, shebezdin chayovim. Now this whole din that we learned in Halacha Aleph, that if Bezdin were hoiru, and then everyone was osu al piyam, so the din is that Bezdin is chayiv and everyone else is potter, is in certain conditions. The Rambam is going to list off a list of conditions that only then do we say that the Bezdin is chayiv and everyone else is potter. But medvar mamurim shebezdin chayovim ve'elu ha'isn al piyam p'turim and akarban is only kshahoyu is the kamek tnoim. First of all, kshahoyu ha'meidin bezdin hagadol sheshivim ve'echad. We're talking about only a bezdin of shivim ve'echad. This is bezdin hagadol. And so there's, besides that, it also be v'yir reish yeshiva imoim beiro. There could be a hechatim to the bezdin hagadol is paskening, but the Rosh Yeshiva, the person that's in head of the bezdin hagadol, is not there. So you say no, it has to be v'yir reish yeshiva imoim beiro. That they all have to be there, and also v'yir kulan ruyin leiro. So we'll soon learn. The Rambam is going to tie all these conditions. The Rambam is going to tie in the Perek Yud Gimel. V'yir kulan ruyin leiro. No, there's certain people that are not roy really to be in Bezdin Hagadol. A ger, b'shem libonim, masoris. Different people aren't roy to be in Bezdin Hagadol. So it has to be all these people should be roy to be in Bezdin Hagadol, and also v'yitu kulan leiro. A rubam bedover zeh sheherubei. It's not clear over here. Later on, the Rambam is going to say that it's not talking about in a case where there was someone that told them they're making a mistake. V'yitu kulan rubam bedover zeh sheherubei. They all made the mistake, or most of them made the mistake, and nobody contradicted them. In other words, no one told them that they're making a mistake. The other ones that even maybe they held that that's a mistake, but they didn't argue. They accepted the psak din. That's what the Rambam will teach us more in Perek Yud Gimel. And also, v'yeru b'feidish, v'yemru la'am, mutorim atam lasa. It's not that they were discussing something theoretically. They were talking about, they were saying a psak din b'peil, v'yemru la'am, mutorim atam lasa, you're allowed to do it. They're not just saying, this thing would be mutter. They're saying, mutorim atam lasa, you're allowed to do it. And v'chein elu shesham mi pi bezdin, imamru la'cherim, mutorim atam lasa. It was given over that it's a heter b'legei l'peil. It was a halacha l'maisa. And not only a halacha in Inyan, just a halacha. It was a halacha l'maisa. And also, v'yasu kol hakol erubi al piyam. It has to be that either kol hakol erubi should do al piyam, and v'yihu ha'isen shegig al piyam. Their shegig should be al piyam. It's not enough that Rubam did it. It has to be that they did it al piyam umedamim shadover sheheru b'kedas heru. They assumed that what they said, it's not like they knew that he made a mistake, and they're doing it anyways. Over here we're talking about they assumed that this psak din was a real psak din. Again, the Rambam will tie trees and Perek Yud Gimel each of these pratim. And v'yeru levatel miktzas or lekayim miktzas. and the psak din wasn't to be mevatel an entire mitzvah, but it was only a levatel mitzvahs or the kaya mitzvahs. Leishi yakru kol aguf. These are all the tznoim. And then the Ram continues, Shekivadolem. Shekivadolem is also yedu gufish shel davar shehiru bebi shgaga. They have to realize what they made a mistake and knows exactly, not that they made up some mistake, but they have to know what the mistake was. Yedu gufish shel davar shehiru bebi shgaga. Again, the Ram will take truth later. B'chol elo amuroim hu shal yubezn chayovim bekorban veis al pi potter. If all these tnoim are there, all the tnoim that he mentioned, which he's going to elucidate in the next two prakim, then only then will there is this halacha there. B'chol elo amuroim hu shahayu bezn chayovim bekorban veis al pi potter. Aval im choser achas mikol elu adrachim. If one of these tnoim that he just mentioned is missing, so then as ari bezn pturim in akorban. But everyone else has to bring a chatos. In other words, again, even though the pale they did al pi bezin, doing al pi bezin is not a reason for ptur. Doing a bezin is only a reason for ptur if the bezin is bringing the carbon. But if they're not bringing the carbon, so then the person that actually did the avera, even though he did it al pi bezin, still he has to bring a carbon. It's not called an oinus.